Jiwoo stepped off the transport ship and into Galactic Council Station Omega-7 for the first time. The massive structure floated in neutral space, far from any star system. Through the observation windows, he could see dozens of alien vessels docked at various ports. Some were sleek and silver, others looked like they had been grown rather than built. This was where the galaxy met to discuss trade, peace, and the future. He had trained for 3 years to become a diplomat. His scores were excellent, his language skills exceptional. At 26 years old, he was one of the youngest humans ever assigned to the council. His parents were proud. His instructors said he had a bright future. Jiwoo felt only nervous excitement as he walked through the station corridors, following the signs to the diplomatic quarter. The station was beautiful. Holographic displays showed information in hundreds of languages. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the halls. He saw beings made of crystalline structures that chimed as they walked. He passed reptilian creatures with scales that shifted color with their moods. A group of floating jellyfish-like beings drifted past, communicating through pulses of light. His guide was Hyun-ji, a senior xenobiologist who had worked at the council for 12 years. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. She showed him to his quarters, explained the basic protocols, and invited him to dinner that evening at the station's main dining hall. During orientation the next day, Jiwoo attended a briefing on council structure and current political situations. The instructor, a human named Director Park, showed them various maps of galactic territories. Jiwoo studied them carefully. The maps were incredibly detailed, showing thousands of star systems connected by trade routes. Different colors marked different governments and alliances. Some areas were marked as dangerous due to pirates or spatial anomalies. But something caught his attention. Every single map, no matter which instructor showed it or which database it came from, ended at the same place. The edge of human-controlled space was clearly marked with bright blue boundaries. Beyond that boundary, the map showed nothing. Just empty black space labeled uncharted territory or unexplored region. Jiwoo raised his hand. "Excuse me, Director Park, why do all the maps end at human space? Surely there are more star systems beyond our borders." Director Park paused for just a moment. "The galaxy is vast, Jiwoo. Not everything has been explored yet. Focus on learning the territories that matter for your diplomatic work." It was a reasonable answer, but something about the pause bothered Jiwoo, and he noticed that several alien students in the room had turned to look at him when he asked the question. Their expressions were hard to read on non-human faces, but he sensed discomfort. That evening, he met Hyun-ji at the dining hall. The space was enormous, with sections designed for different atmospheric requirements. They sat in the standard oxygen-nitrogen section, surrounded by species that could breathe the same air as humans. Jiwoo ordered noodles. Hyun-ji had already eaten but kept him company with tea. "I noticed something odd in orientation today," Jiwoo said casually. "All the galactic maps stop at our borders. Is that normal?" Hyun-ji's hand stopped moving toward her teacup. Just for a second. Then she smiled and picked up the cup smoothly. "The galaxy is enormous. Cartography is expensive. Most species focus on mapping the regions they interact with. But why would they specifically stop at human space? Wouldn't some explorer want to see what's beyond? Some scientist or merchant?" "Jiwoo," Hyun-ji's voice was kind but firm. "You're new here. Focus on learning your duties. There are thousands of things to master before you start worrying about empty space beyond our borders." He nodded and changed the subject, but as he talked about other things, he noticed something else. The dining hall had grown quieter when he raised his voice asking about the maps. Aliens at nearby tables had stopped their conversations. Some had turned to look. Now they were slowly returning to their meals, but the atmosphere felt different. Over the next week, Jiwoo threw himself into his work. He studied trade agreements and cultural protocols. He learned which species found eye contact rude and which found the lack of it insulting. He memorized the complex web of alliances and rivalries that shaped council politics. But in his free time, he found himself returning to the station's public archives. He searched for exploration records. The database showed thousands of scientific expeditions launched by various species over the past century. They had explored nebulae, studied black holes, discovered new forms of life on distant worlds. But when he filtered the results to show expeditions that requested passage through human space, the results came back empty. 0 expeditions, 0 requests. That seemed impossible. Human space bordered at least 6 major civilizations. None of them had ever asked to pass through to explore what lay beyond. Not once in 70 years since humanity joined the Council. He searched for trade route proposals, nothing. Defense, surveys, nothing. Even simple astronomical observations of the space beyond human borders, nothing. Jiwoo requested access to historical council records. He found the archivist, an insectoid named Krovan, working in a quiet section of the station. Krovan's species had forearms and compound eyes that reflected light in rainbow patterns. His mandibles clicked softly as he worked at a terminal. "Excuse me," Jiwoo said politely. "I'm researching historical exploration patterns. Could you help me find records of expeditions planned for the regions beyond human-controlled space?" Krovan's mandibles stopped clicking. All 4 hands froze above the terminal. "Those records are classified." "Classified? But I'm asking about general exploration, not military secrets." "Classified for reasons of galactic security." Krovan's voice was flat. His compound eyes wouldn't meet Jiwoo's. "I cannot help you. Please leave." Jiwoo left, more confused than ever. What did exploration beyond human space have to do with galactic security? His first full council session was held in the Grand Chamber, a vast spherical room where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss policy. Jiwoo sat in the junior diplomat section, mostly there to observe and learn. The session covered routine matters, trade disputes, piracy concerns, a request for medical aid to a colony suffering from a plague. Then a young delegate from a newly spacefaring species stood to speak. His species had only joined the council 5 years ago. They were eager and full of enthusiasm. "Honored representatives," he said through his translator device. "My people are grateful for the knowledge shared by older civilizations. We have a question about scientific priorities. Why has there been no major push to explore the regions beyond human space? Our astronomers have detected interesting stellar phenomena in that direction. Surely such exploration would benefit all species." The Grand Chamber fell completely silent. Jiwoo could hear his own breathing. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species sat frozen in their seats. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence stretched for 10 full seconds. Then the council speaker, a dignified being whose species Jiwoo didn't recognize, declared an early adjournment. "We will resume tomorrow. This session is concluded." The chamber erupted in movement as delegates hurried to leave, but Jiwoo watched as an avian creature named Ralthos, one of the senior ambassadors, glided quickly to the young delegate's side. Ralthos pulled the junior delegate aside and began speaking in hushed, urgent tones. The young alien's expression changed from confusion to something like fear. Jiwoo walked slowly back to his quarters. His mind raced with questions. This wasn't about simple lack of interest in exploration. This wasn't about budget constraints or scientific priorities. Something was wrong. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. The galaxy wasn't avoiding the space beyond human borders out of respect. They weren't doing it out of disinterest. As Jiwoo lay in his bed that night staring at the ceiling of his small room, one word kept echoing in his mind. Fear. The galaxy was afraid. Jiwoo couldn't let it go. Every time he tried to focus on his diplomatic work, his mind returned to the question, why did every map end at human space? Why had the entire council chamber fallen silent when someone asked about it? Why did Krovan claim those records were classified for galactic security? He decided to investigate carefully. As a diplomat, he had access to many areas of the station and could request meetings with various species representatives. He created a cover story. He would write a cultural research paper on different species' attitudes toward exploration and discovery. It was believable, academic, and gave him an excuse to ask questions. His first interviews went nowhere. The younger aliens were polite but had nothing interesting to say. Yes, exploration was important. Yes, their species valued scientific discovery. No, they had no specific plans for the regions beyond human space. Why not? Well, there were so many other regions to explore first. The answers were reasonable but empty. Then he started interviewing older aliens, the ones who had been alive when humanity first joined the Council 70 years ago. Their reactions were different. A reptilian merchant he spoke with became visibly uncomfortable when Jiwoo mentioned humanity. Her scales shifted to dark colors. She cut the interview short, claiming she had urgent business. An elderly amphibian scientist agreed to meet him but refused to discuss anything related to human history. I study geology, young man. Ask me about rocks, not politics. But when Jiwoo persisted with gentle questions, the scientist's hands began to shake. He ended the meeting and never responded to Jiwoo's messages again. Jiwoo noticed a pattern. Fear. The older aliens showed clear signs of fear when certain topics came up. Not anger, not annoyance, but genuine fear. Their bodies betrayed them even when their words stayed neutral. He needed to talk to humans who might know more. Through station gossip, he learned about Taiyang, a cargo ship captain who had been running goods along the border regions for years. Taiyang was known for taking contracts other captains avoided. He had a reputation for reliability and discretion. Jiwoo found him in one of the station's cantinas, a dimly lit place where ship crews gathered to drink and trade stories. Taiyang was in his 50s with weathered features and the muscular build of someone who did his own loading work. He sat alone at a corner table, working on a tablet while he drank something amber-colored. Captain Taiyang, my name is Jiwoo. I'm a diplomat here. Could I buy you a drink and ask you some questions? Taiyang looked him up and down. Diplomat, huh? You're young. What do you want to know? They talked for a while about safe topics, trade routes, cargo regulations, station politics. Jiwoo waited until Taiyang seemed relaxed before asking his real question. I've noticed something odd. Alien ships seem to avoid human vessels in space. More than just normal safety distance. Is that true? Taiyang's expression changed. He set down his drink carefully. You're asking dangerous questions, kid. I just want to understand why. What good does understanding do? But Taiyang sighed and continued. Yeah, it's true. Alien ships give us wide berth. Sometimes they'll alter their course at huge fuel cost just to avoid passing near a human vessel, even in neutral space. Even when we're clearly marked as civilian traders. Why? Because they're scared, Jiwoo. They're absolutely terrified of us. And you know what? Maybe they should be. Taiyang leaned forward. You want my advice? Stop digging. Stop asking questions. There are things that were buried for good reason. Leave them buried. What things? What happened? But Taiyang just shook his head and refused to say more. He finished his drink and left. Jiwoo sat alone, feeling more confused than ever. He needed to see the border for himself. Jiwoo submitted an official request to tour human border territories, claiming it would help him understand the security concerns that came up in council discussions. To his surprise, the request was approved within 2 days. He would spend a week at border station Kepler 7, accompanied by a military escort. His escort was Dae-ho, a major in the Human Defense Forces. Dae-ho was quiet, professional, and watched everything with sharp eyes. He didn't talk much during the shuttle ride to the border station. When Jiwoo tried to make conversation, he received brief, polite responses and nothing more. Border station Kepler 7 was smaller than the council station, but far more heavily armed. Jiwoo saw weapon arrays, shield generators, and sensor equipment everywhere he looked. The personnel moved with military efficiency. Everything was clean, organized, and ready. Dae-ho showed him the command center. Dozens of officers monitored screens displaying sensor data from the surrounding space. We track everything within 10 light years, Dae-ho explained. Every ship, every energy signature, every anomaly. Looking for threats coming toward the council territories? Jiwoo asked, looking for anything unusual. Dae-ho said carefully. Jiwoo studied the displays. Most of the sensors pointed outward, away from galactic civilization, toward the empty space beyond human territory. These defenses weren't designed to stop an invasion from the council species. They were watching for something else, something from the other direction. On his 3rd day at the station, alarms suddenly blared. Red lights flashed. Jiwoo jumped up from where he had been reviewing supply reports. Dae-ho was instantly alert, speaking into his communicator. What's happening? Jiwoo asked. Unauthorized vessel in human space. Follow me. They ran to the command center. On the main screen, Jiwoo saw a small alien merchant ship. It was broadcasting distress signals. Navigation failure, an officer reported. They accidentally crossed the border. Civilian vessel, no weapons, crew of 4. The response was overwhelming. 3 human warships appeared on the sensors, moving at incredible speed. Within minutes, they had surrounded the alien vessel. Their weapons were active and locked on target. Jiwoo watched the communication channel. The alien captain was transmitting frantic apologies. His voice shook with terror. "We mean no harm. Navigation malfunction, please. We're leaving immediately. Please don't fire." The human ships held position, weapons hot until the alien vessel had retreated well beyond the border. Only then did they stand down. The entire incident lasted less than 10 minutes, but Jiwoo felt shaken by the raw fear in the alien captain's voice. "That's standard border protocol," Daeho said calmly. "Any unauthorized entry is treated as a potential threat." He was terrified. "He thought you would kill him. He crossed a restricted border. He's lucky we identified his malfunction quickly." Daeho's expression didn't change. The protocols exist for good reasons. That night, Jiwoo couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that alien captain's voice. That wasn't the fear of legal punishment or fines. That was the fear of death. The fear of something much worse than bureaucratic consequences. He remembered Hyunji mentioning someone once, in a casual conversation weeks ago. An old reptilian trader named Velshara, who had been working in this region for over a century. Jiwoo used the station's communication system to track her down. She was currently docked at a trading post 2 days' travel away. He lied to Daeho, saying he wanted to observe normal commercial operations at a nearby post. The request was approved. They traveled on a regular supply shuttle. The trading post was rough and crowded. Ships of all types came here to exchange goods beyond official oversight. Jiwoo found Velshara's berth and knocked on the hull. After a long wait, an ancient reptilian face appeared at the door. Her scales were faded with age. Her eyes were cloudy but still intelligent. "I don't talk to officials," she rasped. "I'm not here officially. I just want to understand, please." Something in his voice must have convinced her. She let him inside. Her quarters were cramped but filled with interesting objects from a long life of trading. Holographic photographs showed her on dozens of different worlds. Shelves held strange artifacts and souvenirs. They sat on cushions on the floor. Velshara prepared some kind of hot beverage that smelled like flowers. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she began to speak. "I was young when humans came. Not young like you, middle-aged for my species, but young in experience." Her voice was distant, remembering. The galaxy was different then. The Dominion Empire controlled this entire region. Thousands of worlds. They were powerful. They thought they were invincible. What happened to them? The humans happened. Velshara's claws clicked against her cup. The Dominion found human colonies. Thought they would be easy prey. Sent fleets to conquer them. Those fleets never came back. Then human ships appeared at the edge of Dominion space. She stopped talking. Jiwoo waited, not wanting to break her concentration. 3 years. In 3 years, an empire that lasted for millennia was gone. Just gone, their fleets destroyed. Their fortresses reduced to debris. Their slave worlds liberated. And we watched it happen, all of us. Every species in the region. We watched the humans move through Dominion space like a storm. And then it stopped. The humans took the territory that had been the Dominion. They offered peace to everyone else. They joined the council. They acted like civilized beings. Velshara finally looked directly at him. But we remembered. We all remembered what we saw. The speed. The power. The absolute efficiency of their warfare. Jiwoo returned to Council Station Omega-7 knowing more than before but understanding less. The Dominion Empire had fallen 70 years ago. Humanity had destroyed them in 3 years. But that didn't explain the maps ending at human borders. It didn't explain why no one wanted to explore the space beyond. What was out there that made everyone so afraid? He barely noticed the woman following him until she stepped into his path in a quiet corridor. She was human, maybe 40 years old with cold eyes and a professional manner. "Jiwoo Kim, my name is Bora. I work for Human Security Services. We need to talk." His heart started beating faster. "About what?" "About your questions. Your interviews. Your investigation." She gestured to a private meeting room. "Please." Inside the room, Bora didn't waste time. "You're causing problems. Your questions about human space are triggering trauma responses in multiple alien populations. You've made elderly beings relive painful memories. You've created diplomatic incidents. I just want to understand." Understanding serves no purpose here. There are protocols in place. Agreements signed between humanity and the Council. Treaties that maintain peace. When you dig into the past, you risk destabilizing the present. Bora's expression softened slightly. "I know you're curious. I know you want answers. But some things are better left alone. Everyone keeps saying that. No one explains why. Bora stood to leave. She paused at the door. There are classified files. Historical records from the emergence conflict. That's what we call it officially. EC 22777. If you stop your investigation now, I'll forget this conversation happened. If you continue, you'll face formal consequences. Think carefully about your career, Jiwoo. After she left, Jiwoo sat alone in the meeting room for a long time. He should stop. He should focus on his diplomatic work and forget about the mystery. That was the smart choice, the safe choice. Instead, he accessed the council archives again. This time, he searched for EC 2777 and emergence conflict. His diplomatic credentials gave him access to partially declassified records. What he found made his hands shake. The files were heavily redacted. Entire sections were blocked out. But what remained told a story of horror. Star systems changing hands in days. Weapon signatures that the analyzing computers flagged as impossible. Distress calls from Dominion military bases that ended mid-transmission. Reports of human ships that moved faster than known physics allowed. Descriptions of battles that seemed more like natural disasters than warfare. One report described a Dominion fortress world. It had shields that could withstand planet-killer weapons. It had defensive satellites numbering in the thousands. It had a garrison of 10 million soldiers. Human forces arrived, and 16 hours later the fortress world was conquered. 16 hours. The report's author, a neutral observer from a trading species, wrote, "I do not understand what I witnessed. The human attack was not like war. It was like watching a surgeon remove a tumor. Precise, efficient, unstoppable." Another fragment described the Dominion's attempt to use their slave soldiers as human shields. The humans bypassed the slaves entirely. Their weapons somehow only affected Dominion personnel. Within hours, they had disabled every overseer, freed every slave, and secured the facility. We have no explanation for this level of targeting accuracy. But what disturbed Jiwoo most was what the records didn't contain. No human casualties. No logistical supply chains. No diplomatic communications before the war started. Humanity simply appeared and moved through Dominion space like they had done this 1,000 times before. Like this was routine. He needed to talk to humans who had been there. Jiwoo used family connections to locate veterans from that period. Most refused to speak, but he finally found one willing to meet. Sungmin, 94 years old, living in a quiet retirement colony on Earth. Jiwoo took leave from his diplomatic duties, claiming family reasons. He traveled to Earth, something he hadn't done in 2 years. The retirement colony was beautiful, with gardens and peaceful walking paths. Sungmin lived in a small house overlooking a lake. The old man invited him in. Sungmin moved slowly, but his eyes were clear and sharp. "You're not the first young person to ask me about the war, but you're the first who's been persistent enough that I'll actually talk." They sat on a porch watching the sunset. Sungmin brought out tea. For a while they just sat in silence. Then the old man began to speak. "You want to know about the emergence war, about how we destroyed the Dominion, but you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking where humanity came from, what we were before we arrived in this region of space. So where did we come from? Somewhere else. Somewhere far from here. We didn't evolve on Earth, Jiwoo. Earth was a refuge, a new home. We came from beyond the territories you see on those maps." Sungmin's voice was steady but sad. "We were refugees, survivors. We came here hoping to find peace. The Dominion found our colony worlds and decided we would make good slaves. They sent fleets. And you destroyed those fleets. We did what we had to do, what we knew how to do." Sungmin stared at the lake. The Dominion thought they were teaching us a lesson. They didn't understand. We had already learned every lesson the universe could teach. We had survived things that would have destroyed their empire 100 times over. What things? I can't tell you that. It's classified at the highest level. But I can tell you this. When the Dominion attacked us, we weren't explorers who learned to fight. We were warriors who had learned survival. There's a difference. He turned to look at Jiwoo. "We tried peace first. We offered them peace. They laughed and sent more fleets. So we reminded them what humanity had become in the dark places beyond their maps. The records say you won in 3 years. We could have done it in 3 months. We took 3 years because we were trying to minimize casualties, trying to save the slaves they used as soldiers, trying to preserve infrastructure we could use later. If we had fought the way we fought in the dark, the war would have been over in weeks, but there would have been nothing left to save." Sungmin closed his eyes. "The galaxy fears us because they saw us being gentle. They have no idea what we're really capable of. Jiwoo wanted to ask more, but Sung-min was tired. They talked of other things for a while, then Jiwoo left. But the old man's words stayed with him. Humanity came from somewhere beyond the maps. They were refugees, not conquerors. But refugees from what? Back on the council station, Jiwoo made contact with a network he had heard whispers about. Former slaves liberated when humanity destroyed the Dominion. They had their own underground communication channels, their own communities. Through careful messages, he found someone willing to talk. Thexler, a being from a species Jiwoo didn't recognize. They agreed to meet at a neutral location, far from official oversight. Thexler was thin with 6 limbs and skin that shimmered like oil on water. They communicated through a translator device. I was a labor slave in the processing centers. We refined minerals for the Dominion war machine. The work was brutal. Many died. And then humans came. No warning. The human ships appeared in orbit. The Dominion garrison tried to fight. It was over in 3 hours. The processing center's defenses just stopped working. Every Dominion soldier simply collapsed. Not dead, just unconscious. Then human soldiers came. They moved through the facility systematically, waking us up, removing our control collars, bringing medical supplies. They freed you. Yes, but that's not what haunts me. Texelor's translator carried a tone of deep unease. It was how they did it. No hesitation, no confusion. They knew exactly where every slave was. They knew exactly where every Dominion overseer was. They had perfect information, and they moved like they had done this 1,000 times before. Like freeing slaves from processing centers was routine work for them. Maybe they're just good at warfare. No, you don't understand. Thexelor leaned forward. They were good at specifically this kind of warfare. Precision liberation. Targeted elimination of oppressors. Protection of the innocent. It wasn't like they learned these tactics fighting the Dominion. They already knew them perfectly. Someone had to teach them. Something had to force them to develop these exact skills. Jiwoo felt cold. What do you think taught them? I don't know. I don't want to know. Because whatever it was, it must have been worse than the Dominion. Much worse. The Dominion were brutal slavers. But humans fought them like they were a minor nuisance. Like they were dealing with children playing at evil. What kind of enemy would you have to face to make the Dominion seem small by comparison? That night Jiwoo couldn't sleep. He lay in his quarters, thinking about everything he had learned. Humanity came from beyond the maps. They arrived as refugees but fought as experienced warriors. They destroyed an empire in 3 years while trying to be gentle. They moved with precision that suggested extensive practice against even worse enemies. What was out there in the dark? What had humanity survived before they came to this region of space? And why did they work so hard to make sure no one went looking for answers? He pulled up the galactic maps on his terminal. He stared at the blue line marking human borders. Beyond it, nothing but empty black-labeled uncharted territory. But it wasn't uncharted to humans. They knew what was out there. They knew exactly what was out there. Jiwoo had reached the end of what official channels could tell him. Every document was redacted. Every veteran stayed silent about the important details. Every alien who remembered showed only fear. The wall of secrecy was absolute. But then he received an encrypted message from an unknown sender. I've been watching your investigation. I have information. Meet me at coordinates attached. Come alone. Delete this message. He should have reported it to BORA and Human Security. He should have ignored it completely. Instead, Jiwoo took a transport to the coordinates, a small scientific outpost on the edge of human territory. The woman who met him introduced herself as Yoonji. She was maybe 50, with sharp features and eyes that looked like they never missed anything. I'm a scientist. I've spent 20 years studying the restricted zone beyond our borders. Unofficially, of course. Why are you contacting me? Because you're asking the right questions. And because I'm tired of the lies. Yoonji pulled up holographic displays showing complex data. I've been analyzing long-range sensor readings from the space beyond human borders. Very subtle readings that most people would ignore. But I found something. Energy signatures consistent with massive structures. Radio signals in patterns that suggest artificial origin. Old signals faint, but they're structures? You mean alien civilizations? I mean ruins. Dead civilizations? Many of them. Yoonji's expression was grim. I've tracked at least 40 distinct energy signatures, all consistent with advanced technology, all inactive. Someone built massive structures in that region of space, and then those structures went silent. How do you know they're ruins and not just dormant? Because I've compared the decay patterns. Some of these structures are thousands of years old. Some are older. They died at different times, but they all died. She looked at him steadily. I'm planning an unauthorized expedition into the restricted zone. I need someone with diplomatic credentials who can provide cover if we're caught. Will you help? Jiwoo should have said no. This was insane. This was career-ending. This might be dangerous, but he heard himself say yes. Over the next week, Yoonji assembled a team. Hyunji joined them after Jiwoo convinced her the truth mattered more than protocols. She had been carrying guilt for years about knowing fragments of humanity's secrets. Taeyang, the cargo captain, revealed his mysterious past. He had served in long-range reconnaissance during the Emergence War. I knew you'd end up here eventually, he told Jiwoo. Once someone starts asking these questions, they can't stop. The final team member was Nam-soo, a human naval captain who had doubts about the secrecy protocols. The galaxy has a right to know, he said quietly. We protect them with lies. Maybe it's time for truth. He provided them with a small research vessel equipped with military stealth technology. They crossed the human border at a remote sector where patrols were spread thin. Nam-soo used his military codes to mask their departure. For 3 days, they traveled through empty space. The sensors showed nothing unusual, just empty star systems with no habitable planets. Then they found the first ruins. The star system had 2 gas giants and several rocky planets, but orbiting one of the giants were structures. Massive orbital platforms, kilometers long, now broken and dark. Hyunji's scanners analyzed the debris. The materials are advanced but not beyond current galactic technology. Whoever built this achieved fusion power and basic space travel. This civilization was maybe at the level of the Dominion at its peak. What happened to them? Jiwoo asked. Look at the damage patterns. Hyunji pointed at the detailed scans. This wasn't natural decay. These structures were destroyed. Deliberately, systematically. They moved deeper into the restricted zone. The second system they found was worse. One of the planets showed continents scarred by massive impacts. Cities that once held billions were now just radioactive glass. The oceans had boiled away. The atmosphere was toxic. Something had sterilized this world completely. How old is this? Nam-soo asked quietly. 3,000 years, approximately, Yoonji said. This civilization died 3,000 years ago. But they weren't primitive. The ruins suggest they had space travel, advanced computers, possibly even early faster-than-light technology. The third system had no planets at all, just asteroid fields and debris. But the composition of the debris was wrong. These aren't natural asteroids, Taeyang said, studying the sensor data. These are fragments of planets. Someone shattered them deliberately. System after system showed the same pattern. Dead civilizations, some destroyed recently by galactic standards, maybe 500 years ago. Some so ancient their ruins had eroded to dust. Different levels of technology. Different architectural styles. Different species. But all destroyed. We're traveling through a graveyard, Yoonji whispered. This entire region is a graveyard. Look at the trajectory, Yoonji said. The oldest ruins are deeper in. The newer ones are closer to human space. Whatever destroyed these civilizations was moving outward, coming from somewhere in the galactic core, moving toward the region where the council species live now. And humanity's territory is right in the path, Jiwoo realized. They found a beacon in the 7th system. It was still functional, powered by some kind of ancient energy cell that hadn't died in millennia. Yoonji carefully accessed its data. The beacon began broadcasting a message. The translation systems identified hundreds of languages, most unknown to current databases. But the message was simple. It repeated in every language over and over. They came from the core, they cannot be stopped. Run. Save yourselves. They came from the core. They cannot be stopped. Run. The team sat in silence, listening to the desperate warning from a long-dead civilization. How old is this beacon? Nam-soo asked. Yoonji checked her instruments. Her hands were shaking. 12,000 years. This beacon has been broadcasting its warning for 12,000 years. Jiwoo felt dizzy. 12,000 years of death. 12,000 years of civilizations rising and falling and being destroyed by something coming from the galactic core. And humanity had come from that direction. Humanity had traveled through this cemetery of dead worlds. We need to go deeper, Yoonji said. We need to see what's at the core of this. No, Taeyang said sharply. We've seen enough. We need to leave now. But Yunji was already plotting a course deeper into the restricted zone. Just a little further. We need to understand. They traveled for 2 more days. The ruins became older and older. Some of the structures they found seemed impossibly ancient. Civilizations that had died so long ago that their very stars had changed. Then their sensors detected something new. Energy signatures still active. Not ruins. Something alive. Multiple contacts, Namsu reported, his voice tight. Large objects. Very large. Moving slowly but deliberately. They're not approaching us, but they're active. Show me, Yunji demanded. The sensors painted a picture of massive structures. Not ships exactly. Not stations. Something else. They were kilometers long, complex and giving off energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. And they were moving in patterns. Searching patterns, they're looking for something, Yunji said quietly, like they're scanning the space around them. How far away are they? Jiwoo asked. 30 light years. But there are more signatures further in. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. All following similar search patterns. Namsu's hands moved over the controls. We need to leave. Right now. What are they searching for? Jiwoo asked. Maybe they're searching for whoever made it through their territory. Taeyang said grimly. Maybe they're searching for humanity. The team stared at the sensor readings. Those massive structures were still active after thousands of years. Still searching. Still hunting. And they were in the space between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Now you understand, Taeyang said. Humanity didn't just fight the Dominion. Humanity fought its way through this. Through whatever created this graveyard. And we made it out the other side. But they're still here. Still active. Still looking. Namsu didn't wait for discussion. He engaged the stealth systems and turned the ship around. Full speed back to the border. We've seen enough. As they ran, Jiwoo couldn't stop looking at the sensor displays. Those massive alien structures were still out there. Still searching. Still waiting. Humanity had somehow survived passing through their territory. But they were still there. And if they ever found humanity again, if they ever followed humanity back to this region of space, this is what we're protecting, Namsu said quietly. This is why we stand guard at the border. Why we don't let anyone through. Why the maps end at our space. We're not keeping secrets. We're keeping them safe. The whole galaxy. We're keeping them safe from what's still out there in the dark. The research vessel crossed back into human territory 4 days later. Alarms immediately sounded. They were surrounded by military vessels within minutes. But instead of weapons fire, they received a transmission. Stand down. Proceed to designated coordinates. High Chancellor So-hyun wishes to speak with you. Jiwoo looked at his team. They had found the truth. But he suspected the real truth was about to be revealed. Take us to Earth, Namsu transmitted back. We're ready for answers. The military escort took them directly to Earth, not to the public diplomatic centers or the council embassy. They landed at a secure facility deep beneath the Swiss mountains in tunnels that went down for kilometers. Jiwoo and his team were separated, debriefed individually, then brought together in a conference room that felt more like a bunker. High Chancellor So-hyun entered without ceremony. She was in her 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She carried herself with the weight of enormous responsibility. 2 other officials accompanied her, but she dismissed them. This conversation would be private. You went into the restricted zone, she said simply. You saw the ruins. You saw the active structures. Now you want answers. Now we deserve answers, Yunji said firmly. So-hyun nodded slowly. You do. You've risked everything to find the truth. And your diplomatic standing, Jiwoo, makes you someone who needs to understand what we protect. She sat down heavily. What I'm about to tell you is known to fewer than 1,000 humans. It's the most classified information in human civilization. After you hear it, you cannot unknow it. You will carry this burden for the rest of your lives. Are you certain you want this? Yes, they all said. So-hyun activated a holographic display. It showed a star map, but not of the region they knew. This was the galactic core 12,000 years ago. Humanity did not evolve on Earth. We evolved on a world called Homeworld in the galactic core. 12,000 years ago, we were much like the council species are now. We had achieved space travel. We had colonies on a dozen worlds. We were optimistic about our future. The display changed, showing strange geometric structures. Then we encountered them. We call them the Harvesters. We don't know who built them or when. We don't know if they're machines following ancient programming or if something still controls them. What we know is what they do. They systematically locate civilizations. They invade. They process all organic life into some kind of computational substrate. Why we never learned. Maybe they're building something. Maybe they're serving some long-dead master's purpose. Maybe they're just following instructions that have outlived their meaning. The display showed world after world falling. The war lasted 8,000 years. 8,000 years of continuous warfare. Humanity fought and adapted and survived. We built weapons that could destroy stars. We developed technology that seems like magic. We learned to fight an enemy that never tired, never negotiated, never stopped. We couldn't defeat them. They were too vast, too ancient, too powerful, but we learned to survive them. So Hyun's voice was flat, emotionless as she described horrors beyond imagination. We became hard. We sacrificed things we can never reclaim. Our culture, our diversity, our innocence. Everything became focused on survival. Generations were born, lived, and died knowing only war. We turned ourselves into a military force that could stand against ancient machines designed to consume civilizations. The display showed a massive exodus. Thousands of ships. 4,000 years ago, humanity made a choice. We couldn't win. But we could escape. The last human fleet carrying billions of survivors fled the core. We headed toward the edge of the galaxy. We hoped to find empty space where we could rebuild far from the harvesters. But the space wasn't empty, Jiwoo said quietly. No. We traveled through territories held by dozens of civilizations. Some were already fighting the harvesters and losing. Some had been dead for millennia. Some were still thriving, unaware of what was coming. We couldn't stop to warn them. We couldn't risk being slowed. Every delay meant the harvesters got closer to our fleet. So we fought through. Anyone who tried to stop us, we destroyed. Not because we wanted to, because we had no choice. The display showed the ruins Jiwoo had seen. The civilizations you found in the restricted zone? Some died to the harvesters. Some died because they tried to stop humanity's exodus. We don't remember which was which anymore. Does it matter? They're all equally dead. Hyunji was crying silently. Taeyang sat with his head in his hands. Yoonji stared at the display with blank eyes. Hamsu, the military officer, sat at attention, but his jaw was clenched tight. We reached this region of space exhausted, So-hyun continued. We found young civilizations just achieving space travel. We found the Dominion Empire enslaving species who couldn't defend themselves. We wanted peace. We wanted to rest. We wanted to be something other than warriors. We approached the Dominion with offers of cooperation. They attacked your colonies, Jiwoo said, remembering what Sungmin had told him. Yes, they saw us as weak refugees, easy prey. They sent fleets to conquer us and take our technology. So-hyun's expression hardened. They had no idea what they were challenging. We had fought the harvesters for 8,000 years. The Dominion was nothing compared to that. We destroyed them in 3 years, and we did it while trying to minimize casualties, while trying to save their slaves, while trying to act like civilized beings rather than the war machine we had become. The galaxy saw that and became afraid, Namsu said. Yes, they saw us being gentle and realized we were holding back. They saw us operating at a fraction of our capability and were terrified. So we made an agreement with the surviving council species. We would join their civilization as equals. We would help protect them. We would share some of our less dangerous technology, but they would never ask about our origins. They would never try to explore the space beyond our borders. They would accept that some questions have answers too terrible to bear. The display changed one final time, showing current sensor data. The massive structures Jiwoo had seen, still active, still searching. The harvesters are still out there. Their scouts probe the edge of the restricted zone. They're looking for us. They're looking for the prey that escaped. Humanity's true purpose isn't diplomacy or exploration. We stand guard. We maintain a vigil at the edge of civilization. We make sure nothing follows us out of the dark. For how long? Eunji asked. How long will you stand guard? Forever, if necessary. The harvesters don't die. They don't give up. They've been hunting civilizations for who knows how many millions of years. They'll continue hunting. Our job is to make sure they never find the council species. Make sure the galaxy never knows how close they are to annihilation. So-hyun stood and walked to the window. Beyond it, Jiwoo could see the mountains of Earth. Peaceful. Beautiful. Hiding bunkers full of weapons that could crack planets. Every human knows a version of this story. It's part of our culture, our history, but most don't know the details. Most don't know the harvesters are still active. Most just know we came from somewhere dangerous and we protect the galaxy from it. She turned back to them. Now you know the complete truth, and I'm offering you a choice. Join the Sentinel Corps. Those of us who know the full truth and dedicate our lives to maintaining the Watch. You'll continue your current work, but with full knowledge of what we protect and why. Or we can redact your memories of the expedition. Remove your knowledge of what you saw. Return you to your lives with only vague awareness that you investigated something classified. Memory redaction? Hyunji looked horrified. It's painless and safe. You'll remember investigating human history. You'll remember being told to stop. You'll remember choosing to stop. But you won't remember the ruins or the harvesters or any of this conversation. Taeyang spoke up. I already knew most of this. I served in reconnaissance. I'll continue serving, Namsu nodded. I'm military. This is my duty. Yunji stared at her hands. If I forget, I'll just start investigating again. I need to know. I'll join, Hyunji wiped her eyes. Someone has to remember. Someone has to bear witness to what we've sacrificed. I'll join. They all looked at Jiwoo. He thought about Velshara's fear, about Thexeler's questions, about the young alien delegate who innocently asked about exploration and triggered silence, about the maps that ended at human space. The galaxy lived in peace because humanity stood guard. They lived in ignorance because humanity carried the burden of knowledge. Every day, human scientists tracked the harvesters' slow movements. Every day, human soldiers maintained weapons that could end worlds. Every day, humanity pretended to be just another species while secretly being the galaxy's shield. I'll join, Jiwoo said, but I want to return to my diplomatic work at the Council. Someone needs to manage the fear, make sure the galaxy trusts us enough to let us protect them, but fears us enough not to push past our borders. So Hyun smiled sadly. That's exactly what we need. Welcome to the Sentinel Corps, all of you. 3 months later, Jiwoo stood at an observation deck on border station Kepler 7. He had returned to his diplomatic post, but now understood everything differently. Every alien ship that passed safely through Council space was protected by humanity's silence. Every peaceful trade negotiation was possible because humanity stood guard at the edge of the dark. A young pilot named Jinnah approached him. She was new to the station, fresh from training. Diplomat Jiwoo, I'm sorry to bother you. I have a question. My instructors wouldn't explain. Why do the maps end at human space? Why doesn't anyone explore beyond our borders?